Hi, I'm Cliff with Audioholics, and today I'm going to show you how to install an in-floor or an in-ceiling subwoofer. So first let me explain what these subwoofers are and why you would want to use them. Well, there's two main reasons. A normal subwoofer is going to sit somewhere out in your room, and maybe the ideal location for it sound-wise is in the way there's a walkway or there's some furniture there. There's some reason you can't place a subwoofer where you actually want to. And the second reason would just be for aesthetic reasons. Maybe you could place a subwoofer in the best spot in the room, but you don't want to because it's not going to blend in, it's not going to look good. And that's really where one of these subwoofers come in play. They go either in the floor or in the ceiling, and with the model we're installing today, and in general, if you see one that's an in-floor model, it can also be installed in the ceiling, but it can't be installed in a wall. In-wall subwoofers follow all the same premise and really installation tips, except they're a little thinner, so they're going to fit in between a 2x4 or 2x6 stud bay. But an in-floor or in-ceiling subwoofer is deeper and it's not going to fit in the wall. So the way these work, you run speaker wire actually from an amplifier to the subwoofer as opposed to an RCA cable. These subwoofers don't have a built-in amplifier, so you run an RCA cable from the AV receiver into an external amplifier, and I have one sitting beside me right here, and then you run speaker wire from this amplifier over to the subwoofer. Now the subwoofer, when you install that, it's completely hidden behind the drywall or under the floor, and all you end up seeing is a vent. If it's going to go on the floor, you'll use, I have one right here, something like this floor vent, or if it's going to go on the ceiling to blend in, all you end up seeing is something like this vent right here. So people are going to mistake it for something to do with your HVAC system in your home. So that's the general premise. Let me show you what we're actually using today, what you're going to need to install one. For today, I chose an RBH Sound SI 1010, and it's called the 1010 because there's dual 10-inch drivers in it. And then the matching amplifier from them, which is, let's see if I can remember the model number, an SA 500 DSP, and these are matched to go together. The reason I chose these is because I wanted something really powerful for the room, and I wanted something that I knew after a couple years wouldn't break, because this wouldn't be fun to pull out and reinstall. And RBH has put some limiters in the subwoofer, so it's going to help prevent the amplifier from ever overdriving it and actually damaging the unit. So that's the stuff that we're installing today, but this video really applies to almost any in-floor or in-ceiling subwoofer. They install almost identical. And as far as tools are concerned, you're not going to need a whole lot. You need a ladder. You're probably going to want somebody to help you out. You're going to need some sort of saw to actually cut the floor vent, and it's your choice there. You could use a hand saw or a reciprocating saw. My recommendation generally is a jigsaw. That works best. I don't have one with me today, so I'm actually going to use what's called a plunge cut saw. I'm using the Dremel Multimax, which is a really versatile tool. It's not ideal for this job, but it's going to work just fine. And that's about it. So with that, we're going to go ahead and head up to the main floor and actually determine where the subwoofer should go and mark some things out. Then we're going to come back down and make sure we can actually put the subwoofer where we want to. Alright, now we're on the main level of the home where the subwoofer is actually going to be installed. Now one step I didn't show you is determining the best subwoofer location. We already cover that in another video, which I'll link to below. That video talks about a method called the Subwoofer Crawl, where you essentially play bass-heavy music through your system, and then you crawl around your room and listening to how the bass sounds to determine the best location for the subwoofer. Another method to use, although it costs some money, it's much better, it's much more objective, would be to buy a microphone and then either download free software or buy a kit. I'll show you what I used today was a kit by XTZ Sound, and this comes with a microphone that you need, cool little carrying case, software, a tripod, all the cables you need to get everything hooked up between your computer and your receiver, and you can play test tones through your subwoofer and then measure how the subwoofer is actually interacting with the room to determine the best location. That's a lot of learning to do for somebody just looking to get this installed quickly. The Subwoofer Crawl method's probably going to work best for most people, but if you're an enthusiast, if you want to learn more about it, if you really want to make sure you're putting it in the right location, you can buy that equipment, start down that path. Just know that there's going to be a bit of research involved. You could also try to find a custom installer in your area that offers that service. Depending upon the size of area you're in, you might not have the best of luck. It all depends. Either way, once you've determined the best location, then you need to figure out if the subwoofer can actually go there. So the way I'm going to do that in terms with this installation and the subwoofer going in the floor is start off by using a reference bit. And I already have one installed in the drill. I'll move it close here so you can see it. Now this is really this long, thin steel. You can buy it off of Amazon. The stuff that I buy comes from Labor Saving Devices, and it comes in a pack, and it's just long strips of steel that you actually cut and then fold over the end and you put it into your drill. What this allows you to do is drill into the floor or really into the ceiling, and then either go into the attic and look and find where this reference bit is coming out, or go into the basement and take a look up and see where it's coming out, and actually determine where you're at, you know, between the two levels of the home. And the reason you'd use something like this is because it's such a small piece of steel. If you find out, whoops, I can't actually put the subwoofer where I want, you just pull this out of the ceiling, and there's probably no patchwork to do. You're never gonna see it. And it, with the floor, can just go straight through carpet as well, where a normal drill bit might not be able to. It might start spooling up the carpet. An alternative, this is more so the custom installer way. For a general consumer, I would grab a small drill bit and a metal coat hanger, cut the coat hanger, make it flat, drill a small hole in the floor with a drill bit, and then put the coat hanger through. Then go into the basement and actually see if you can tell where that coat hanger is coming down at. You can really just do a visual check to determine at that point if the subwoofer can go where you want. I'll talk about that a little bit more later, because in this home, although the basement's unfinished, there is drywall on the ceiling. So I'll give you some tips for determining where, you know, if the subwoofer can go where you want it to without actually cutting a giant hole in the drywall. As far as a ceiling installation is concerned, that's really simple. You just figure out where you want it, take a look around to make sure there's no can lights, then take out a stud finder, mark the studs on the ceiling, take your reference bit, you know, drill it through, or your coat hanger, whatever you choose, then go up into the attic, bring a broom with you because you're gonna have to sweep away the insulation. Go up into the attic, find your reference bit poking out, sweep away all the insulation with a broom, and then just look there to see if you can actually put the subwoofer where you want. All right, I've got my drill set up with my reference bit. I'm gonna go ahead and drill a hole straight through the carpet into the cavity below, and then we'll go down into the basement and see if we can't find this. There we go. Easy as that. Now, one thing to note, if you do decide to go this route, use a really short piece to actually do your initial drill through, because a longer piece like this, it's just gonna bend and it's not really gonna go through very easily. So let's go into the basement. All right, now we're back downstairs and need to find the reference bit. Now, one way to do it, if this were, you know, an unfinished basement without any drywall on the ceiling, would just be to come down and take a look. That would be incredibly simple. But since we have drywall on the ceiling, we need to contend with that. Since it's not taped or textured, I could just pull it down. But let's pretend that it's completely finished. You want to take a look before cutting out some giant hole to actually get the subwoofer in place. Now here's how I would do it. First off, take some measurements upstairs and then carry them over downstairs. I measured over to an exterior wall, over to my reference bit, and then I just came down, was about 10 feet. So then I just came downstairs and I measured from that same exterior wall over to the 10 feet and put up a piece of tape. So my reference bit should be about here. And then you could use a stud finder to mark out your joists. And then after that, you need to somehow see what's going on in the ceiling. Here is sort of a hokey route that tends to work out really well. Cut out a hole in the ceiling using a drywall saw. And I have one right here. And whenever you cut out drywall, especially above your head, put on some glasses so you don't get any dust in your eyes. Cut it out just large enough to fit your phone in there. Turn the camera on your phone and then turn the flash on so you have a light up there, and just stick that up in the ceiling and you will probably be able to find the reference bit. So that's what I'm going to do here. Alright, we have a hole cut out. Well, as you can see, the drywall is off on the ceiling right now. What I just showed you, I cut out that little hole and put my camera up there, my phone, to take a look, and I found my reference bit, but I also found that there were some obstructions in the way, so I couldn't actually put the subwoofer where I wanted. And since this isn't a completely finished basement and I can easily pull down the drywall on the ceiling, I just went ahead and did that to get a better view. And so I now found a location of where I want to put the subwoofer. Now I'm where the subwoofer is actually going to be installed. And this is an exterior wall right here. We're going to put it up in this bay right here. Now typically the way that these subwoofers are installed, the manufacturer assumes that you don't have open trusses like we do in this home. They assume that you have solid, say 2x10s. The subwoofer is supposed to slip up in between them, so it just slips right up in between this bay, and then you put screws in from the sides to secure it in place and you're done. Well, most new homes, at least in my area, aren't built that way. They're using a lot of open trusses like this, and so you have to go about installation a little bit differently. And especially since we have an exterior wall here, we can't, there's no way to really screw in from the side, because there's nothing here except for the outside of the home. So the way we're going to secure this one is stacking 2x4s on top of the trusses right here until we have the subwoofer up as high as it needs to be and it's secured against the floor. And then we're going to put some screws in from the bottom, use some construction adhesive. I'll show you a little bit more once we actually get to that point. I'll tell you one other tip really quick. When you go to get the subwoofer into place, just temporarily before it's actually secured, no matter how you're doing it, take a 2x4 and secure it wherever you want across the stud bay, and then you take the subwoofer and sort of put it up and it'll rest on here temporarily. Then you can take a second one and screw it in so the subwoofer is completely held up temporarily. You don't have to sit there with one or two people and try to hold it in place while somebody gets screws in from the side. That's just a giant disaster. If you're installing this in the ceiling, you do the same sort of thing. Now generally you're going to be up, and you set this down, you're going to be up in the attic and you'll sort of set it down over the drywall. If you're concerned about setting it down too hard and it pulling a sheet of drywall right off, that shouldn't happen, but a good safety measure is to, from your living room or whatever room the sound's actually going to be going into, again, take a 2x4 and actually secure it. In this case, you have drywall here and you secure it to the ceiling. And then when you set that subwoofer down from the attic, this is going to help take a lot of that pressure off the actual drywall and drywall screws itself. So really quick, I'm going to show you the subwoofer because there's actually a little change that we have to make with that. Based on where we're installing the subwoofer. Since we're installing it on this exterior wall, I don't want the vent in the living room above to go this way. I want the vent to go with the wall so it looks nice. That's how a typical heating and air installer would do it. And in order to make that happen, I had to get a different baffle for the subwoofer. Let me show you that really quick. First, I'll point out, earlier I said this is called the RBH Sound SI1010. That's because there are dual 10-inch drivers. Pretty easy. So let me show you that baffle. This is what the subwoofer comes with right here. And you can see the cutout where the vent is going to go. You put it on the subwoofer, and it comes pre-installed. So you put it on the subwoofer like so. But because of how we're installing the subwoofer, I don't want it to go this way because then it's perpendicular with the wall. It just kind of look weird. So to make things look nicer, I went ahead and ordered this one right here. So now the vent's actually going to go this way instead. I wanted to make sure you saw that, knew that you could swap those out. Now we're going to get to actually cutting out the hole in the floor upstairs since we know where the subwoofer is going to go. We're ready to actually cut out the hole. You can see right here that I marked it out with painter's tape. That's a really good route to go, so you have something to follow. Since we are cutting through carpet right here, you want to start with some sort of a carpet knife to actually get through the carpet, and then you can switch to whatever saw you're going to use to get through the actual wood flooring. In this case, I said earlier that I was going to use a Dremel Multimax, but I actually found a cheap little jigsaw right here from Black & Decker, so I'll use this instead. A little tip, when you go to actually use your knife to cut out the carpet, have some sort of straight edge to follow, and that way you're not just free-handing it, doing whatever you want, making a wavy line on accident. Another recommendation, make sure that your vent, your cutout here, isn't cockeyed in any way. So take some measurements from the wall here over to make sure, and I can see I'm at about 3 3/4 of an inch to where my vent's actually going to be. I measure it on this side, go measure it on this side, make sure it's the same. So let me get started here. There, and let's see if it fits. Perfect. So now we'll take the jigsaw. A little tip here, go ahead and use a drill. I have a 3/4 inch spade bit on here, doesn't really matter what you use, and cut out around the corners of the vent, and that's going to allow you to more easily get your jigsaw in and actually make your cuts. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, I finished cutting out the hole with a jigsaw and made sure that our floor vent right here fits perfectly. So we're going to run back downstairs and actually get the subwoofer installed in place right now. Well, I must admit I just forgot to film a step. You can see the subwoofer's up here. The only thing you missed out, literally all we did, was you see there's a brace here going across. There's one here. There's one here, and these two aren't screwed in yet. They're just sitting there temporary, and this last one is screwed in. It took 2 of us. It was really heavy, and this insulation got in the way. It had to sort of be pushed back in. It was a bit of a pain, but all we really did, you put this one board across, we brought the subwoofer up, shoved it into position, and then brought these other 2 and set them there just to hold it. Now the next step for us is a little unusual. Typically with an installation like this, you can take the subwoofer, put it up in between the trusses, and then screw in from the side. And we're not going to be able to do that. Since it's an exterior wall, we can't screw in from that side. And since these are open, we can't really screw in from that side either without getting some type of sheeting and putting it in there and then screwing in, which we could do. The reason we're not is because we don't want to add any stuff in between this cavity, because that gives us less room to get the subwoofer moved back and forth and really lined up so it matches with the vent we cut out above. So what we're going to do, it's not the way the manufacturer recommends it. Really, manufacturer doesn't have a set of recommendations for this specific instance, so you're sort of on your own, which is very often how a lot of these custom install jobs go. And so here's what we've come up with. We're going to have these 3 boards across, 2x4s, laying up, and we still have about, I think it's another 4 inches that we need to bring the subwoofer up to be flush with the floor. So we're going to run another set. I've got one of them cut right here. We're going to lay this on top of our first 3, and that's going to bring the subwoofer up even closer, and that might be right where we need it, and if not, we can always add a few shims. As you can see, the subwoofer is secured in place permanently now. Hopefully you can see this from the video. There's a 2x4 running the length of the unit on both sides, and those 2x4s are secured to trusses on both sides. That's really what the subwoofer is resting on. These three supports right here could be pulled out, but there's no reason. It's a little bit of extra lumber, add some more rigidity, so we might as well just leave them in. Like I said, this is a custom job. There's probably 20 different ways you could do this. This is the way that we chose. In a situation like this, and with most of these, you're gonna have to do a little bit of improvising to get it to work well in your situation. But thankfully, the subwoofer is really flexible, since you can take out the baffle, switch it around, get the baffle that has the vent going two different directions. So the subwoofer's in, and overall, I think the installation went pretty well. The last thing to show you is the actual amplifier and how that hooks up. Here I am with the RBH Sound SA500 DSP amplifier. This is the amplifier that RBH Sound recommends to use with the subwoofer we just installed, the SI1010. And there's a number of things I like about this as opposed to some of the other amplifiers that manufacturers package with or recommend for their in-wall or in-floor or in-ceiling subwoofers. One of the first things is that it comes with a remote, and you can use that to adjust DSPs in here. So you can set your own EQ to help take care of some of the issues that really, no matter what subwoofer you have and what room you place it in, it's not going to be or play completely linearly. And so you can use the EQ in here to help even out the sound, so you really get it dialed into where you want. I think that's a huge feature. But some of the other little things, it comes with rack mount ears, which are great. I have them already installed because I'm actually going to be putting this in an AV rack. There's a display panel on front that when it's powered on will show you the volume level that you have this set at. Here's the volume knob, and it'll show you the level of the signal coming into the unit. And that's just kind of nice to be able to see and make sure you're not driving this too hard, or if you're wondering why, hey, I'm not getting any sound from my subwoofer, you could take a quick glance on here and realize maybe this isn't actually getting any signal. So that's the front of it. Let me show you the back. This is pretty standard back here. You have, move it up so you can see a bit better. You have your power connection for AC power. This dial right here is to adjust the brightness of the display on front, which is really nice if this is sitting out in the open. Here's your high level inputs to hook your speaker wire up to that runs back to the actual subwoofer. And then over here you have a grounding terminal, if you so choose to use it. And then balanced and unbalanced inputs and outputs. And the point of the output is you can loop this out to another amplifier or another subwoofer. It's really nice to see the inclusion of balanced and unbalanced connections. But that's about it for this amplifier. And that's it for this video. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. Audioholics has a ton of other videos and thousands of articles on our website, audioholics.com. So I encourage you to head over to the website and read some of those and browse their YouTube channel and keep watching some videos. Thank you.